Hi everyone, this is Culture Mapping and your hosts, Konstantin, that's obviously me, and Anastasia.
Hi, in this podcast inspired by the book Culture Map, we are interviewing people from various backgrounds to learn more about their culture and their life, and their businesses.
How the social environment affects your views and the path you take. Culture mapping is our own way, to reflect on how to live a global life in such a fragmented world.
Today, we are talking with Alex Warren. He's a British guy who used to live and work in various Middle Eastern countries and ended up here in Dubai. He's told us how the different cultures have affected his Britishness and what key British qualities he's managed to preserve.
But before we jump into the conversation, I would like to thank the sponsor of this season of Culture Mapping, Flower. It's a marketplace where it's easy to find the gifts for your loved ones. There are flowers, sweets, jewelry, handicrafts, and other cozy things made with love. Flower is a super easy to use app, and we would definitely share a link in the description of this episode. You can select a perfect gift from hundreds of shops. There is also a calendar feature where you can add all the important dates so you don't forget to spoil your loved ones. You can also make a wish list and share it with your friends and family so you also get something nice. Flower already operates in more than 30 countries around the world, and if you haven't used it yet, it's time to give it a try with our promo code CULTURE. It's CULTURE. It will avail 15% discount on any order and is valid until December 2024. Okay, let us start with a simple question just to give the context to our listeners. Who are you and what do you do?
So my name is Alex Warren. I'm from England and I am the founder and owner of Zerzura Books in Dubai. I've lived here for around 2 years this time, but I've lived in Dubai before, between 2006 and 2009. So this is the second time that I've been living here. And I've spent most of my adult life outside of England. So even though I was born and raised in England, I think I've lost some of my Englishness from living abroad in different countries. So I live here, I work here. I started my business around 1.5 years ago. And I have a shop that sells first editions, rare books, plus some photography, original posters, and other interesting things that you probably won't find anywhere else in Dubai.
And that's one of my favorite places in the whole city.
Okay. You mentioned Englishness. What is that for you?
Oh, I don't know. I think you sent me a list of various national character traits that you think. So I was very interested to see this list. So I think one is always being polite and charming, like James Bond, who I don't really remember ever being polite and charming, but that's fine. Another one was queuing, a cult of queuing, which I think I think that's quite accurate. We do like to queue. We like order. What else was on the list of English things? Drinking tea all the time. So yeah, as you can see, I am drinking a tea right now. It was the first thing that I did when I arrived in the studio was to find a cup of tea.
With cold milk?
With cold milk, of course, yeah. So I think there's a few national, generalizations or stereotypes about English people. Some of those are probably true. Punctuality, we like to be punctual. Yeah, we have these national traits. I think every country does really, characteristics that maybe get lost a bit when people move abroad for a long time and they move overseas. It's funny in Dubai because you have so many different nationalities and it's dangerous to extrapolate from the people you meet here to the people that are back in their country. It's only a specific probably type of person who is going to move to Dubai or even move overseas. I mean, there are a lot of my friends, people I get on with very well, that would never really think of moving outside the country. And so that, we live here and so I meet someone from Russia or I meet someone from the Philippines or someone from wherever it might be. And you kind of think, they're representative of their country and everyone is like that back home. But it's dangerous to do that because I think it's only a certain type of people that will probably come and live here. So Englishness is hard to define.
And how living abroad, for example, here in Dubai, actually affected your Englishness? Like, do you see how it changed you from like English person to a Dubai English person?
I'm not sure I put myself in the category of being a Dubai English person, really. I think for better or worse. I first lived abroad when I studied languages at university, and the first experience of living abroad was in Paris. I went to work there for a year as part of my course, my university degree. And that was great because I got really good at French to the stage where I started dreaming in French. Apparently, when you get to the stage where you're dreaming in a foreign language, I don't know if you do this in English, you probably do because you both speak very good English. This is when you have really, you've kind of...
Yeah, that's a very high level
Your brain
thing.
has got to a certain level and you're very immersed in it. And then I moved to kind of North Africa, other parts of the Middle East, where there were much, much probably fewer English people than there are here. Here is almost, you can find every bit of Englishness that you want. You can go to the supermarket, you can buy Heinz baked beans, you can buy English tea, you can go for cooked breakfast, you can go and watch the rugby sevens, you can drink a pint of London Pride beer. So it's not particularly a hardship posting or an alien place. You can kind of...
Well, you can see the influence.
And of course, I think, the English have this history of being in this country before it was even a country, before it became the UAE in 1971. The British were always kind of loosely in the region. So how has it changed? I think I'd already lost a lot of not being fully English, maybe, from living abroad before, from spending a lot of time overseas, especially in places where there are much fewer English people. So when I lived in Egypt for about 5 years, which is, probably more than 95% of the population there is Egyptian. Whereas here, you have a much, much bigger mix. Here is very different. It feels like it's kind of an anomaly. I can't really think of anywhere else in the world where you would kind of have a lot of the things that you would be able to find back home. But in terms of English people, in terms of the things you can buy and the things you can do, it's very sort of easy and comfortable. If you want to do those things, you can.
And professionally wise, what you've been doing in different countries is like everything related, or you've been trying like doing different jobs in different countries or not?
Yeah, so I started out as a business journalist. So I worked for a company that wrote reports about emerging markets in the early to mid 2000s, when emerging markets was a very kind of sexy word. It was still lots of the post-Soviet countries were growing very quickly economically. There was an oil price kind of boom going on at that time, so there's lots of big growth in this part of the world, North Africa. It was a kind of a different. It was sort of peak globalization where there was a lot going on. There's a lot of money being created. So I worked for a company that went in and wrote these economic and business reports about these countries. So my job was to go and research what was going on. I got to interview a lot of people. And I worked in Lebanon, Oman, Tunisia, doing that. After a while, thought that I could have a go at doing it myself with a former colleague. So started my own business quite early on, at the age of about 26, 27. And I did that for quite a long time, 10 or 11 years. And then COVID happened. COVID was quite disruptive for business that we were doing, because it was dependent on foreign companies that were kind of going into these countries, and they were hungry for information. They had an appetite for it. They wanted to invest. They wanted to sell things and do business there. And that just dropped to zero. And then when COVID started to ease, I was very, very sick and tired of sitting in front of a screen, working remotely, not really talking to people, not doing something face to face, and wanted a kind of a bit of a change, do something more tangible. So dealing in something that's real, that you can touch and feel. So the idea for this business didn't come from some, big strategic business plan where I'd identified this niche in the market and I was going to invest and scale it up and sell it and do all this stuff. It was actually just very much something that I wanted to do. And it's quite a mainstream business in the UK, in Europe, in the US. It's, specialized bookshop, basically. But no one was doing it here. And I thought about locations to do it. My first choice was actually DIFC, which is very close, but no space was available. So then, luckily, there was a small space coming available in Alserkal Avenue in Alcoz, which was very good timing. It was a great coincidence. And so that's how it happened. And probably if that space hadn't come available, I don't think I would have done the business. So it was just some things that came together, and started it very small. And it still is small, but trying to grow it. So professionally, that's how I got to where I am at the moment. So it was a kind of more of a combination of strange circumstances that happened to me, rather than setting out with a very clear goal of, I want to do this, I want to do that from day one. It was kind of just something that, yeah, just happened that way.
And the choice of the country, how did this happen? How did UAE happen at the end of your journeys?
Yeah, I think it's probably a similar way to how a lot of people end up in the UAE. It was circumstances. So I was living in a country that was quite difficult to live in because it was going through a series of crises. So living in Lebanon, there was a period where there was a financial crisis. The banks were closed. There was very little petrol in the country. There were power cuts for 16 hours a day. And then you had on top of that COVID, dysfunctional government, various other things happening that made it increasingly less desirable to live there. And it wasn't really a serious place to work or have education. So it was a case of ticking boxes and seeing which place might work. Didn't really particularly want to go back to the UK. And in this region, Dubai it's stable, it's safe, schools are good, it's kind of international, and you kind of know what's going to happen, which sounds very, 2 years after moving here, it sounds very obvious to say that. So, that's sort of how I ended up here again. So yeah, again, circumstances. It wasn't really living somewhere else and thinking, wow, Dubai, I've got to move there because it's this glitzy sunshine all year round kind of place. It was just, yeah, it was almost just a result of the circumstances.
Have you thought, you said that there was no like specialized bookshop here in Dubai. Why nobody opened it?
Because it doesn't make very much money. So, no. I think that the UAE is a small market at the end of the day. And we all get kind of seduced by being here. We're in this big city. There's lots of people around. There's lots of, things going on, and there's lots of big events. Dubai has a huge profile. But at the end of the day, the UAE, there's not that many people. 10 million in the country altogether, maybe 3 in Dubai. So it's small, number one. It's a small market. Whereas if you're doing this business in the UK, you've got 60 million people. In the US, whatever, 250, 300. Russia, 100 and 150. So the market is small. It's also quite fragmented. A lot of people are not native English speakers. Are they going to buy a book, in English? Are they going to spend money on buying something that's a collectible book? You've also got a very diverse range of income levels, socioeconomic levels in Dubai as well. So it's only quite a small proportion of the people that I'm probably targeting for this. So there are book fairs. So there's a very long established book fair in Sharjah. There's another one in Abu Dhabi. So they had been going for a while, and they've been quite successful. And I think also Dubai has changed a lot in the last 16, 17 years. And I think there's a lot of things that wouldn't have happened without a certain amount of people being here, like a critical mass. Whatever hobby or activity you want to do now, you can probably find somewhere to do it in Dubai. If it's an obscure sport or a board game club or whatever it is, because there's a lot more people moved here, and especially in the last 2 years. And a lot of people come in who do appreciate books and literature and culture. Not that the people here didn't before. Of course they did, but you've just got a lot more people coming in. The demographics have changed quite a lot. And I think also physically, there's not many places where it might work. So the economics of retail in Dubai are quite weird. So if you want traffic, if you want high footfall, you need to be in a mall. You wouldn't if you were in London or if you're in Moscow. You'd have a nice shop in a street. But here, because of the seasonality, because of the climate, because of the way the city is laid out. But to be in one of those malls is extremely expensive. If you want to be in a busy one where you can find your right target market, like Dubai Mall, for example, or Dubai Hills Mall, if you know those places. Very hard to get into. They're aimed more at the big brands, big multinationals that can afford the rent. And it's only in the last few years, I would say, you've seen some alternative places come up where smaller independent businesses might be able to, actually make it work in terms of the rent. That's another reason as well. And if you look at the bookshops that are here, they tend to be huge and not very many of them. So the biggest bookshop in the country is Kinokuniya in Dubai Mall, which I think is great. The Kinokuniya size thing works because it gets the economy of scale. It's very big. They have one in Abu Dhabi. They're a huge Japanese bookseller. And I think generally around the world, it's very difficult to make money from having a bookshop. It's not, an oil company or a bank or, something that will generate millions of dollars. So I think maybe there's a few reasons why that is. Some specific to books and some kind of specifics to the economics of retailing in Dubai.
When you were at the point where you had to leave Lebanon for some other place, you didn't consider going to England, even though now it seems that the market there is better. So what's
for
the
books,
reason?
yeah, well, I wasn't planning a bookshop, but maybe I would now, having spent more time learning this business and learning the trade. When you look at the book industry in England, I don't know if it's the same in other countries, that's actually growing again now. I think there's been this post-COVID rebirth of people wanting to buy physical books. BookTok on TikTok has been very successful in getting people back into books again, which is great. And now you see more and more, independent bookshops, I think. When I go back and visit and I go into some bookshops, they're always busy. It's a really good sign. And for what I do, you have many more kind of sales channels as well. So again, and this is probably why no one had done this before. So if I'm in the UK, there's a specialist website, a bit like an Amazon. Actually, it's owned by Amazon, but it's for rare books. So you can list all your books on there. You don't have to do marketing for your own website. You can list everything online. It's like an agglomerator. There's a lot of book fairs. There's a lot of sales between different book dealers. So a lot of the trade is not to retail customers, it's to other bookshops and other book dealers. Whereas here, I'm the only one. So you don't have anyone to sell to. So yeah, it's a case of adapting the business here and seeing where your market is. So a lot of my customers, they're not buying because they are particular collectors of a certain author or genre. They're often buying as gifts. So personal gifts or even business gifts, which I hadn't really considered before in the shop, but they might be meeting someone important, a business client, and they want to bring something that's a bit interesting and unique and has a meaning to the recipient.
Yeah, that's exactly what I always do.
Yeah.
Like this is my type of business gift, really.
So figuring that out has been an interesting process. Just learning.
But why not, coming back to the question, why didn't you consider
going back to England?
Yeah.
I think I struggled to know where exactly I would live in England. So I'm from the north of England, North Yorkshire, and my parents and two sisters still live in that area. But I haven't lived there since I was 18. I don't have any friends there anymore. Most people have left. And I still go back and visit in the summertime and at Christmas time. But I struggle to kind of envisage life there again. It's been quite a long time since since I lived there. And then, a lot of the job opportunities and the business opportunities are probably in London. But again, I'm not from there. I don't have family or, friends there anymore. They're quite scattered. So it wasn't really the case of I was coming from a hometown, I'm from that town or from that village and I will always move back there again. That's my plan. I think a lot of people are like that. They keep their family house and they want to move back there and they have their roots. Whereas I didn't really have that. And I think that's good and bad. I mean, I would quite like to have somewhere where I know I'm going to go back there. I'm going to live 10 years here and I'm going to go back and I know exactly what house I'm going to live in and that's what I'm going to do. But I didn't really have that obvious path back home.
But do your sisters know that you're going to take the family home?
No, there isn't really a big family home.
Now they know.
Yeah. So, and it rains a lot and it's quite grey and that would be quite difficult to deal with after living in warmer countries. Dubai is too extreme. I think my ideal would be somewhere in the Mediterranean. But yeah.
Is there some kind of an obvious difference in behavior between people who live in England in the north and in the south? Because usually it is in many countries.
Yeah, I think there are stereotypes. So I think one big one is that people from the north of England are considered to not like spending their money. They like being what we would say in English tight with money. So they like to hold on to their cash. They don't like spending it. You could say that they have short arms and long pockets. You can't reach your wallet in the pockets.
Like a T-Rex.
Yeah, exactly. And then people in the north would often say, again, stereotyping, that people from the south, maybe they're kind of soft. They're not really tough or they're a bit kind of, I don't know, they've got airs and graces or they're a bit fancy. So you do have this kind of north-south divide. And I think there really is a north-south divide when you look at the economics of and income levels in the UK. It's quite London-centric. It's not very devolved politically, weirdly. It's still quite centralized. Even you have local councils. So yeah, that's another one of these regional divides. Yeah, I'd say those are the main ones.
You've been in Dubai twice, so this is like a second time. What has changed?
More people, bigger, and much bigger in terms of the physical space that it occupies. It's expanded a lot more into the desert. When I lived here the first time, I lived in the marina, but on the media city side of the marina, and it was a complete construction site. You know, literally look out the window, and every day the tower would advance a little bit more until the view was completely blocked. So the marina wasn't finished. You couldn't even walk around the marina. It was before JBR was complete. There was just a wild beach there, which was actually very nice. I would say the demographics have changed a lot. It's more regulated. That's another change that I've seen. You know, I was here during the crash of 2008, 2009, which, you know, there were lots of reasons for that, but one of them was the real estate market wasn't really fully regulated enough to control a crash, you know, in terms of people were flipping properties very quickly. Developers had a lot more freedom to kind of do things that they shouldn't have been doing. Now I think it's a lot more regulated. I think it's more business friendly than it was. I think it's easier now, you know, to have let's say you can get the remote working visa. You know, I was here before. You had to have a sponsor, UAE sponsor. That was the only way you could live in the country. You know, you'd have to have someone to sponsor you, or you'd have to have a tourist visa and come in and out. So now there are many more options for people to come and live here. More expensive, I would say. More liberal. Before, you know, these rules only recently were relaxed. You might not have seen it, but, you know, an unmarried man and woman theoretically couldn't live together. I mean, it wasn't really necessarily enforced, but that's changed in the last few years. You know, that's been a gradual change over the last 15, 20 years as Dubai's tried to, you know, attract more people, but also tried to persuade people to live here for a longer period. You know, we've seen, you know, golden visas in the last few years. That wasn't really a thing before. So I think it's maybe become less transient. But yeah, I think fundamentally it's the same structures in the country. And the same way that it's operating, but it's just become, bigger, more people, easier to sort of exist and live here, I would say.
Like, is there some certain idea the English people in English have of English people in Dubai? I can try to explain a little bit, because I'm here for 5 years. And before, like 2019, 2020, my friends were asking me, and what exactly are you doing in Dubai? Working? What is there to work? And like giving some like really weird comments, because like they couldn't really think that you can go to the UAE and do something proper there, that it's must be something like sketchy or whatever. Is there some similar idea about like English people by English?
Dubai is seen firstly as a holiday place, you know, guaranteed winter sunshine. So people like coming here on holiday for that kind of experience. It's not probably seen as somewhere where you're going to go and have a deep and rich cultural experience. That's the image. I'm not saying whether it's true or not, but that's probably the perception. I think it's seen as a modern holiday kind of, you know, it's hard to say because I'm not there in England. There are also these TV shows, and you know, there's a certain image that Dubai has in the media in the UK. It's popular for influencers to come and take videos of themselves doing things. It's a popular place for Premier League footballers to come and take holidays. So there's lots of celebrities that come here as well. It's seen as also a place that's maybe a stopping off point. So there's a lot of people that come between Australia and the UK. Because of the historical links. So there's a lot of people that will come through here. So yeah, it's hard to say, but I think it's if anything, the image of it is a bit like a sort of a bling, flashy place. I don't know if that's positive or negative, but that's probably how it's seen. Yeah.
And how do they see the people who select the bling thing? Like, for example, how do they see you? Because you like moved here, you started the business in a place where a bookshop with vintage posters doesn't really fit, it seems so.
Yeah, I think that's changed in the last, 10, 15 years. I think the image of it has changed, and now you get a much broader range of people moving here because there's a lot more companies that have moved here as well. So there's a lot of big multinationals that are here. It's become a more serious place to work. There's whether you law firms, banks, oil companies, there's lots of companies that have relocated here because the shift in the global economy has been away from, the old world, Europe, towards this part of the world, towards Asia. So I think that's changed. I think the perception of it has changed from being this glitzy, bling tourist place to actually, okay, yeah, there are serious companies and businesses here. Dubai has benefited, I think, from COVID, from crises and other places. I know quite a few big companies that have relocated from Hong Kong because it's a difficult place. It became a very difficult place to do business during COVID because of all the restrictions. And it's seen as, the political dynamics there have changed a lot. So they've moved here. So I think the perception has changed a little bit from being just this shallow kind of place where, yeah, people make money just only by selling houses or being an estate agent to somewhere where you can, yeah, there are proper companies and yeah, I think it's more interesting.
What maybe amazed you or shocked you when you were starting a business here? Because as far as I understand, this is the first business in the UAE. So how was it like?
Nothing, I would say, really shocked me, that hugely. It's always surprising how much it costs to start a business. And again, that's just how it is. It's expensive to have a business license. There are licensing rules. Again, that's not a shock because you can go and see how much it costs. Whereas back in the UK, it's very easy to set up a company. It's $10 and you can do it very, very quickly. Whereas here you have to have your business license, and so that's always it's not a shock, but that's part of it. The cost of renting space in malls is quite shocking. Again, that's just supply and demand. But finding out how much it costs to rent a shop in Dubai Mall it makes your eyes water. But there's a reason for that. So shocking, no, nothing too, I would say, dramatic. Being kind of familiar with the country already. There's always things that are surprising. One of the things that I was pleasantly surprised about was how many Emirati collectors of books there are. I did 2 book fairs last year in Abu Dhabi and Sharjah, and it was a total experiment. I've never done one before, so I was very kind of nervous about doing it and who I might meet there. So that was really nice. You have a lot of Emirati collectors of books. They're very into the history of the country. They're very knowledgeable about it, and they're a joy to talk to because they really know their stuff. And that's nice because you're living in a city where everything is always about kind of the future and futuristic, and things are changing. Whereas there's actually a lot of stuff in history which is really interesting here, but it's just not really accessible because when you walk around, you don't really see old architecture or old buildings, but it is here. It's just there's harder to find. So that was a nice surprise.
Any not nice surprises?
I don't think there's been any terrible disasters so far, touch wood. There's always challenges you have to overcome and things that you kind of get wrong, like stocking the wrong kinds of books or books that actually you think that someone might be interested in, but they're not. That's tough. The nasty surprise of maybe finding out how much it costs to rent space here. And dealing with the summer as well. Last year was the first summer that I was had the business and had the shop, and it really does drop off. Like in terms of the traffic, in terms of the people that are here, it's difficult. It's just unless if you're in a mall, you're okay. You can get around that. You have AC. People will still come. In fact, they probably come more in the summertime because there's nowhere else to go. So that was a little bit of I was prepared for it, but it was very, very quiet. That's a very difficult seasonality to get over. So understanding that has been interesting.
So just to adapt to the seasonality.
Yeah, I think so. And just it's the type of business where it doesn't depend on the volume of trade. It's just more about finding the right few customers. I'm not a Kino Kunya in Dubai Mall where I'm going to get 10,000 people in every day. It's just finding those few clients that are interested in it.
Well, it's just different business niche.
Exactly.
Yeah. What is, in general, let's call it entrepreneurship culture among English people? Like, is it promoted as something, you should do or you should try? Because, for example, I remember growing up, And talking to my dad, who has like a small security company in St. Petersburg, he was always like saying that starting a business is something close to impossible. And I think in a lot of Russian families, it's very similar idea about it.
Well, I think you're right in saying that your family is a really important influence on what you do, probably even more important than the kind of country or business environment that you're in. But I can say from England, I do think we're quite an entrepreneurial country. I think that's kind of ingrained in our kind of, we have, we're an island country. We like this idea, or it's a false idea, but of being kind of self-sufficient or a little bit independent. And that's why I think a lot of people voted for Brexit as well. So when you look at the figures, and I don't have them with me, but there are a lot of small companies, self-employed people in the UK, and that's gone up since COVID as well. It's very easy to start a business, to incorporate a limited company there. It's very easy. It's very cheap to do. The tax structure in the UK is favourable for small companies. You can structure your accounts so that you can take money out of the business as dividends rather than salaries. So it's quite favourable if you're self-employed. So the business environment there is quite, compared to lots of other countries, it's quite good. And I think we do have this entrepreneurial culture. So I came from a family where my father always had businesses. He went between different, jobs as well. But so that had an influence on me. And then I think me personally, coming back to when I worked in France, I worked in a huge accounting and auditing company. And I don't know why I did this, but it was it was very good for my French. But I came out with the conclusion that I do not ever want to work in a big company again. So again, it just forms it shapes your path. It's just what happens to you. I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I left university, but I know I just didn't want to go and work in a big company. So the first job,
which is a good thing to know.
Yeah, we found out the hard way. But if I'd had a fantastic experience in that company, I would have thought, right, I just really need that structure. And there are really good things about working in a big established company. You have stability, you have all the benefits that come with it. You have, a path to promotion. You have that ahead of you. It's very clear. But I don't know. I think, the first few jobs that I did after I finished university were all in very, very small companies where I was working directly with the person who ran it. And I was kind of very influenced by them, in certain ways, whether for better or worse. So I'd always had that experience. I would never worked in a company where I was only working at you start at the bottom level. You don't deal with the CEO, you're dealing with the manager above you. Whereas I was going in and working in tiny organizations where you directly talk to them and you're thinking, okay, I quite like to be them. I like to be in their position. And you learn from them directly. And they have a completely different mindset from someone who will be just the middle manager in a company. So going back to England, I think we're fairly entrepreneurial country, and I think it's easy to get started there. I mean, we have problems like every country. There's corruption, there's big companies that dominate things, but generally I think you can see case studies of small companies that have grown and become successful in the things that the UK is still good at. Not many of them anymore, but it does happen.
And you've mentioned you were working directly with several entrepreneurs, and they kind of inspired you. What were the exact qualities you've seen and you were like, wow, I want to be like them?
Yeah, I wish I had those qualities, but I don't. I think energy is one, just kind of having a lot of energy to work and to put other things aside and being very focused on what you want to do. Taking risks, which again, I'm quite a risk-averse person, I would say. Even though I've started my own business, I find it quite scary. So being able to take the risk of, I'm going to put all of my savings into this. I'm going to mortgage my house and use that money for the business because I'm so confident it's going to work. Being good with people, being able to sell things. At the end of the day, you're selling, right? Whatever business you're in, you're selling either yourself or you're selling something. So they're always quite good at doing that. But it's a big variety of people that I think entrepreneurs are. I don't think there's any one kind of type that you can pick out. But yeah, some of those qualities were interesting.
And how do you feel here about like this entrepreneurship spirit? Is it evolving? Is it something related to the UAE, or like how do you feel it here?
Yeah, I think that firstly, it's improved a lot, like I said, since, I lived let's say 15, 20 years ago. There's a lot more scope for small businesses to start, but I think the barriers to entry to starting a small business are still quite high here. It's great that there's 0% tax on profit. Well, now there is some tax on profit. It's just coming this year. But you've got to make profit first before you do that. A small startup business will pay the same business license fee as a huge multinational, So it's still a place that's got this legacy of being, I would say, like oriented towards big companies. And I think there's been a lot of progress that's been made, but there's probably more that can be done to encourage people to actually start that business, do something small on a micro level, whether it's a shop or a cafe or, just in terms of licensing fees. And I suspect that will come in the future as they increase the corporate tax level, and maybe then they will maybe reduce some of the business licensing. But your barrier to entry is a little bit high here, and it's also not a cheap place to live. That's on the one side. On the other side, it's a growing market. It's a growing economy. So that's great. You can find a lot of talent here, I think, now. So yeah, I think I've seen more and more kind of these small businesses start in the last few years, and I think it's a big change that's happening. But I do think it is still quite high price to start.
How do you perceive like a good leader? Like we talked a little bit about like entrepreneur, but what is a good leader for you? Or like just let's try to generalize a bit, even though you're trying not to, but what do English people see as a good leader?
I think consistency. So if someone is saying what they do and do what they say, that's really important. Professionalism, like, I think that, it sounds very basic, but, just doing that. Having a really clear vision of where you're going and what you want to do and like communicating it. I think that sounds obvious, but I think that's important. Hardworking. So again, like sounds obvious, but if you need to set an example of what you want your staff or your employees to do. And if you're kind of taking 5 holidays a year and always by the pool, that's not a great, you can't expect your employees to follow you on that. Good communicator, that's important. Being fair. These all sound very basic things, but I think they're all kind of important. I don't know if there's a difference between being a good manager and a good leader, because they can be quite different things. So yeah, I think generally it's just setting an example for how you want sort of your team to act and follow. And there's so many different great examples of leaders. There's certain football managers who are great leaders. I think you have to have charisma probably as well. You have to be able to sit around and people will kind of look at you and listen to you. I think that's important. And
coming to a little bit back to communication part, I just had a very tough question. This is actually from my boyfriend, and he's working a lot with people from Great Britain in general, not only English, everyone. And he always is so frustrated and he's a German. I think that's a very important thing to put into the context. And he's always saying, British people are always lying to me. And I ask them, why are you lying to me? And they can't even explain. What does he mean? Why is he saying this? What do you think?
I don't know. I'm sorry. He's had a bad experience. I wasn't aware we were, had a reputation for lying any more than other nationalities. I think, we do have, I think you mentioned before, a sort of national characteristic of not being very direct. Maybe that's part of it. It's because we don't like to sort of be too brutal and direct and tell the truth or tell someone, what we really, really think. That's probably one of the things we have to work on more. And I think that's a big difference. What I've noticed with, let's say Russia, for example. I did some business in Russian-speaking countries before. After being in the Arab world for a long time, the difference in business culture is massive. Because often in this part of the world, you would have to have business meetings where you would have long introductions and flowery things. It would take a long time before you would sort of get to the meat of the conversation. Whereas Russia, I just found it was like, bang, right, why are you here? What do you want? You know, it's kind of the opposite. And it was very hard to deal with, and that was very hard to adapt to. And you can often see it also on personal level as well. And there's nothing right or wrong about it. It's just different. So yeah, adapting to that is hard. And I think maybe that's one of the things about being Dubai is that you do have to, you change the way that you talk to people and communicate with people depending on where they're from. Here is a good training ground for knowing how to communicate with a lot of different cultures. And it takes a while to figure it out, and you make mistakes, even in terms of the language you use, going back to that. So I've lived and worked quite a long time with people whose first language isn't English. And so I think I've lost a lot of a regional accent. And, you know, I try to speak in quite simple words and language and not use phrases that will only be known to someone who's only ever lived in England. And that's because if I speak very quickly, or if I use weird phrases that might be funny, or, you know, people in England would understand it, that person isn't going to get it. However good your English is, they're not going to know those phrases. And so I often see that with people who've maybe only recently moved here or have not spent a long time outside the country, and they're still speaking as if they would to an audience back in England. And that's really hard. You know, you have to communicate much more clearly and change how you speak. The flip side of that is if I sometimes go back to England, I talk to people there, they think, well, it's just like, why are you talking to me like I'm a child? So slowly, and you're not using these idioms and ways of speaking.
I remember at school, at English language classes, our teacher was always making us to learn by heart certain like English idioms. And we were like, what is it? Why do we need this? We suffered so much, now I understand why we needed this.
Yeah. Just small little things. Like I was in I can't remember what it was, someone was giving a presentation and they said, well, we could talk about this until the cows come home, which is an English phrase, means we could talk about it forever, you know, until the cows come home. And everyone was looking like, what is he saying? We don't understand what he's saying.
Who are the cows?
Yeah, what do you mean cows come home? And so, you know, you have to avoid things like that because you're going to lose your listener.
Do you think, or like from your experience, is it harder to sell to the locals rather than Europeans or not?
So this is an interesting cultural difference. Like what I've found is that some people will spend a huge amount of time deciding what to buy. You know, people will come and get their phones out and check the prices, go online, and, you know, just in front of looking at the product and checking things, is this like a good price or not? Whereas other people will be like, snap in, they don't have much time, they're not sort of price sensitive, they just, right, I really like that, I would like that, you know, I'm just going to buy it. They're the best customers. So you do find that with different, maybe a little bit different nationalities, but I think that's more of a personality trait rather than a cultural one because, and I think it's also to do with the amount of disposable income that someone's have. If someone just, you know, some customers do come in and they're like, okay, wow, you've got this, I just want that.
How is your relationship with negotiating? Because I know that certain people here can negotiate you to death. Can you answer them when they try to do that?
So I am much more happy to give a discount on something if someone does not ask for it. So this is one. So you will have some people that will really say, okay, can you give me a discount? What's the best price you can do on this? So always, you know, I'm not a supermarket. My prices are not fixed. There's always a little bit of room in that, you know. And I think people, they like that experience of going into the shop, and because you're dealing with, you know, you're not dealing with something in the mall where that's the price. You know, I can't change it. So again, it depends on, you know, if you're having a good month or not, you know, or if you're feeling, oh, this has been great, I don't need to really sell that, and or if you're like, oh God, it's been pretty quiet this week, I just need to sell whatever. So that's fine. You know, I try to build loyalty with customers. So people who will come in and buy things, they won't ask for a discount, but I might say, right, I'll reduce that for you because I know you've come in before. So I think people appreciate that. And that's quite rare to get in Dubai because you don't get many independent retailers. You don't get a kind of a direct experience with it. So yeah, there is always a limit, and there is negotiating can be fun.
So you can find it fun, because I know like a lot of my friends and clients and like just people I know, when they move here, they're so frustrated about the need, not even the need, just the possibility of negotiating, because it kind of, if there is a possibility, I feel I should do that, I must do that. But I don't want that, because it's like, it's energy consuming.
Yeah, I think you just have to factor that in to the business and be prepared for it, however you price things. I mean, we also negotiate when we're buying. I negotiate when I'm buying books as well. So I will often ask, okay, well, what can you give me a discount on that? What's the best price you can do? And that's normal in this business. So that's part of it, really. But you just have to judge every situation differently. If someone is, if they really want something, you can tell they really want it. Or if it's something, sometimes books have been sitting on my shelves for months and months and months, think, I'm never going to sell that. That's just going to have to throw it away. And then someone might come in and ask for a discount, and I'm like, yes, just just take it, please take it. So yeah, but it's true. I think in this part of the world, it's just something to expect. But I think it's less extreme here than quite a few other countries. I mean, like I say, I lived in Egypt for a long time, and there it's probably the world's greatest bartering and negotiating country. If you want to sell something at 50, you probably have to price it at 100. Because there is the starting point. It's just the part of the business culture, I think, is that you will ask for discounts on things, and there's an expectation that the price that you're being asked to pay, that is not the price. That is not the real price.
What's the best or the most interesting bargain you've ever made while negotiating hard?
Bargain?
Like what did you get, and it was like amazing price or something?
To buy something?
Yeah, when you were a buyer, not a seller.
Sometimes in this business you can get really lucky. So it was a book that I bought. I'm not going to say which one, but I bought it. Bought it from the UK. I bought it online, and it was a first edition book. And I got it, and I opened it, and it was signed and inscribed by the author, and it was really rare. So it turned out that the book that I bought for price X was actually worth about 50X because it was signed, because it was a nice surprise. And that's the interesting thing about this business. It's a bit like treasure hunting. So when I go back to England, I like digging around, or in any country I visit, digging around in bookshops, and you can find little things that aren't worth anything there. But you think, that's interesting. That's worth a bit of something. But if you know what you're looking for. So yeah, that's not a deliberate sort of bargaining victory, but you do get nice, pleasant surprises.
That's interesting. And in terms of your niche, the locals, which genres they're looking for? As you say, like you are this is the treasure hunt. So basically, what are the treasures for the locals?
Anything about the UAE and the region. That's what I've found. So what I've found is a lot of Emirati buyers are very, very interested in the UAE history, and I found the same. I've got customers from Saudi and Qatar as well.
I have one question, I think one of the last ones, which I was asked before, and I found it very interesting. Like people asked me, you as a Russian, please tell me what is the quality of your people that you're kind of proud of and you want others to have it because you think it is so useful. Is there any such quality for English people?
Oh, that's tough. I like the fact that a lot of English people are polite. I think there's a border between, like we said before, not saying things straight and, getting around the subject. But I like that people say please and thank you a lot. And I'm quite a big fan of that generally, because it doesn't, we have this, it doesn't cost you anything to do that. And it's kind of, it shows you appreciation, just saying please, thank you, being polite. And lots of other nationalities are as well, but maybe we have this reputation for being polite. So I quite like that. I'm a fan of that. I think we're quite not competitive, but when you look at things like sport and sort of film and art, sort of fashion things, we're quite good at that still. So I think that's quite nice. So being kind of creative is maybe something that's good. So those are the good ones, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. And a quick reminder, this season is sponsored by FlowWow, a marketplace where you can find the right gift for your loved ones. Download the app through the link in the description. Use the promo code CULTURE, it's CULTURE, to get a 15% discount on anything you want. This discount works until December 2024. By supporting our sponsors, you support us. Thank you so much. We will hear each other quite soon.